Right, continuing with the Civil War, Section 4. The first thing we see here is the Freedmen's Bureau, which of course was an agency established by Congress to help former slaves, who of course now will be known as freedmen. And this was popular with the freed slaves and those that supported the end of slavery, but was extremely unpopular with those who were still stuck in the Confederate mindset. And oftentimes, these institutions would be attacked. The people that worked there would be attacked, and in many cases, funding was very, very poor. So it was a good attempt. How much it actually helped people, that's widely debated. Reconstruction. Now, this is important because it talks about the time of the rebuilding of the nation after the Civil War. But remember, it's both physical rebuilding, as you can see, the physical destruction here. Obvious, many cities were destroyed, lots of farms, railroads, buildings, ports, tons of things needed to be rebuilt. And we know how to build things. We're pretty good at building things. So this physical rebuilding certainly was going to cost a lot of money and take a lot of time, but we knew that we could do it. We did it before, and so we know that we could rebuild it. The more difficult one is the political rebuilding. How do you let people, or how do you facilitate people to make up and no longer be enemies that just a few short months ago were sworn enemies trying to kill each other, and now you're supposed to be fellow countrymen? Now, obviously, this process was going to take a long time, but no one really knew how to do it. So again, with the physical rebuilding, we knew how to build buildings and bridges and railroads and stuff like that. We're pretty good at that, actually. But when it comes to rebuilding the bond of nationhood and the bond of brotherhood, that is something that no one really knew how to do. And it has varying degrees of success. Some people might even suggest that Reconstruction is still going on in some parts of the South, where segregation still exists and racism is openly rampant. Andrew Johnson, perhaps, at least up to now, the most disliked president. He was impeached, but not removed from office. He was nearly removed from office. And remember, it's two parts. The first part is the House has to impeach the president, and to remove the president, the Senate also has to agree. He slipped away by, I think it was one vote, so close to being impeached. And he was really just a guy that just turned people off, not only with his words, but also with his policies. Incredibly arrogant and really disliked by just about everybody. But he did survive his term in office, and he was not impeached. He was he was impeached. He was not removed. All right, the 14th Amendment. This says a lot of other things, but basically it comes down to states are now required to provide equal protection. This means equal rights to all citizens. And so this was to make sure that you cannot treat freedmen, the newly freed slaves, differently than you could someone who was not a former slave. The second thing that it did, is important, is that it made anyone born in the United States a citizen. And so that meant that slaves that were born in the United States, former slaves born in the United States, were now U.S. citizens, and therefore they had the rights of citizens. 15th Amendment is the last of the aptly named Reconstruction Amendments, 13, 14, and 15. And this just prevented discrimination in voting. Now, Southern states did find ways to make it more difficult for newly freed slaves, the freedmen, to vote, but legally it was illegal to discriminate on who can vote. And you've probably heard about the literacy tests and things like that as well that were used to freed slaves from voting. Scalawag. This is not really a term we use much anymore. In fact, I believe it's a Scottish term for skinny cattle. It just means white Southerners who joined the Republican, the anti-slavery party. Carpetbag. This is a northerner who moved south after the war in order to take advantage of the economic benefits of Reconstruction. All these companies popping up, roads need to be built, of course, homes, businesses, buildings, everything. And there's a lot of money available for that. And the idea of why they're called a carpetbagger is because this is a carpetbag, and it really used to be the only way to carry your goods. There was that or big old trunks. And you could either put your gear into a trunk, it was very heavy and difficult to carry, or a bag like that, which is made of carpet material, which is very thick and durable. So the image you're supposed to have is somebody quickly packing up all their goods into a carpet bag and grabbing it and throwing it over the shoulder, and then running down to the south as fast as they could as not to miss out on any dollar they could make from Reconstruction. Hiram Revels, first African American senator. Sharecropping. This was a really unfair way, and really was almost the same as slavery. But it's where landowners would give a few acres of land to farm, and in return, the workers would give a portion of their crops. And of course, not every year you're going to have great crops. And if you happen to fall on, hard times or a bad harvest that put you in debt, it was virtually impossible to get out of debt. And that's what we mean when we say used as a way to keep freedmen in perpetual debt. Perpetual means continuous, means that it keeps on happening. The Ku Klux Klan, unfortunately, that's a group that is still around these days. They are a secret that we don't really know too much about the internal workings of. We do know they are a hate group, but they were a group of white Southerners who used violence to keep freedmen from voting. The most bizarre thing is that they claimed they were ghosts of dead Confederate soldiers who had come back for revenge. I wonder why they had to put those sheets on their horses as well. Were they also risen from the dead? It's just really, really bizarre. It's a horrible, despicable group. And on that note, we will end for today.